Jack Baines. I work in the construction industry as a health and safety manager, and what we're going to do today is a little bit about hazard identification. I've got this on a PowerPoint. It's just I'm so used to doing PowerPoints, it was the most convenient way for me to actually put it across here. There is a little bit of an exercise that we'll go through as well. Does everyone know about risk assessments? You're kind of like okay with it?
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll just brief over the hazard identification, and there's a quick exercise as well. Right, so the objective of course is obviously to provide you guys with a skill to identify and understand hazards, to understand what the hazards and risks are, and also to look at a risk rating. So how do we work out if something's a high or low or medium risk? So a hazard is something with a potential to cause harm. Give me a potential hazard that you may think you may have in mind that you've come across.
What, in the building industry?
Just in everyday life.
Exposed electrical wires?
Yeah.
I would have said wires across the floor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trip hazards, fantastic. Or in your case, it might be a hazard, might be a drunken lout, a criminal. Okay, the risk. Okay, so we're gonna go through a risk. What is a risk? So the risk is the likelihood of a harm that will actually take place. So if you've got a cable across the floor, what will be the risk of that? What's a harm that can happen?
Trip and fall.
Trip and fall. And what could be the outcome of that trip and fall?
Injure yourself.
You can injure yourself, yeah. So that can be a minor or a major. So a minor is probably a first aid, or a little scrape, or a major could be a broken hand or a broken leg or something like that. Fantastic. We'll do the risk level as well, which is the likelihood of an injury that the hazard will cause and the chance of it will happen. So basically, if you had a cable across the floor, you're going to trip over it. What's the likelihood that someone will trip over it? The likelihood is pretty high. And what's the likelihood of someone might be harmed? That's going to be pretty high because the likelihood's there as well. So, okay. What we're going to do quickly is I've got some photographs, and I would like you just to put together the hazard and the control measure. So if you just work in pairs. So there's a couple of quick scenarios. Just have a look at the photographs beforehand. If you've got any questions on here, or if you don't understand some of the photographs, we'll just talk through them, it's not a problem. But basically, the idea of the exercise is to identify the hazard and then the control measure. The control measure is what will stop that hazard from, or that harm from taking place. Okay. You've done it. Yeah. Fantastic. That was easy, wasn't it? Yeah. So here we've got the hazard, which is a cable.
Yeah.
Potential of falling over. The control measure is just taping it to the ground and making sure that it isn't free and available. Now here you've chosen the fire extinguisher. Why have you chosen the fire extinguisher for this?
Just because of the sparks, it's going to start fire.
Hot works, absolutely fantastic. He's got all his PPE on, so there's nothing going to injure him or anything like that. And then we've got the fire extinguishers as well. And basically with hot works, whenever they carry out any hot works, there should be fire extinguishers with them at all times right next door to them, just in the case of a fire. What do we think of that picture, the guy with the steps right on the top rung?
Well, that's not safe. That's going to wobble.
Yeah.
He can fall off.
Yeah.
If he stands on this, I presume they've got brakes on.
They have.
And that's a lot safer.
Yes.
So you would use that.
You would use that, absolutely. So what could be, if we go through it, if we go back, so we know what the harm could be if a person fell, yeah? We know what the harm could be here, it's fire, which is the cause. And what could be the harm here? What can happen to that person if they fell over?
What, injury again?
Crack
his head open.
Crack his head open, yeah. Did you know that a lot of the accidents that happen from work at height are actually from a low level, they're not from a high level? Simply because if you're working above 2-3 metres, people tend to protect themselves a lot more. Whereas if they're working a metre and a half off the ground, they tend to think that they're being invisible and it will only take them a few seconds, and that's when most of the work at height injuries actually happen. Okay, so what we're going to try and do is do a risk rating. So what I just want you to do is just put the just on these bits of paper, just put likelihood, the severity, and then we'll work out the risk rating of that particular risk. So we can't carry a risk assessment over here. So basically, the risk rating for the trip with the wire, very likely.
Just put the number.
Yeah, just put the number. Yeah.
Number 5.
Number 5. Okay. So what would be the risk rating or the likelihood of the fire happening with the hot works?
Depends really where it's taking place, though, doesn't it? Because in order for something to catch fire, you need.
Yeah, and if he knows what he's doing, he should be quite.
Yeah. If we take the scenario as in we're on a building site where there's a lot of material lying around, there's potential of rubbish there as well.
That's a fairly likely.
Which one we're going for?
Fairly likely.
Number 3. Fantastic. And the last one?
This one.
Yeah. The likelihood of
Off the board. Number 5.
Right. Now we're going to go through the severity. So if something did happen, how serious would the
Tripping be?
yeah the injury be? So basically there'll be a first aid, a minor injury may have a day off work, time off work, which is over 7 days off work. A serious injury would be a break, and a fatality is obviously death.
Not a serious injury. You could have a serious one.
You could.
But possibly number 3, because I'd have a bit of time off if I tripped over that at work.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you?
Again, I'm sort of thinking between 2 and 3, but if we went worst case scenario.
We'll go worst case scenario. It's always good to go worst case scenario.
Serious injury.
Okay.
So we're talking a break would be considered a serious injury.
Yeah, I mean, what you've got to look at, especially with trips and falls, and trips in an office environment, is that how often have you heard of a serious injury happening when someone falls on a cable?
No, so it's going to be. It could
So
be minor, but it could have
it's
time
kind of
off.
like reflecting on your own
I would
experience.
say 3, because in a work environment, somebody's going to take some time off for that, aren't they?
Go on, but then I have heard the case where somebody's fallen and whacked their head on the table and died from it, so...
Yeah.
That's extreme, so I would say
Yeah.
number 3.
Okay, go on, number 3.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. The hot works. The severity.
I think I'd say 5 in theory. If a fire did start, it could burn down. If they're working in a block of flats or something, such as injury, risk of injury to him, it's a major fire hazard.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah.
I'd say 5.
Okay.
For that one.
Cool. And the last one, the steps.
That?
I'd say that's potentially 5 again, or at least a 4.
Yeah, I would have said a 4.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
4.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Now, I just want you to do is just times the 2 figures together, and that'll be your risk rating. And I'll go on to the risk rating in a second. If we just, that'll be 15, won't it? Yeah. So just times that, and that one together. Okay. So this basically, there's another graph here, and basically what this is a risk rating. So we've got 15 here. So 10 to 16 is tolerable, so he's not at too much risk, but we still have to put a control measure in, i.e. put the cover in and make sure that the cable's fixed to the ground. This one's 15 as well, so that'll be the same. So it's tolerable. We need to improve what we're doing. We need to make sure that we've got fire extinguishers. He's got things like a hot work permit as well, and so it's a control measure there to make sure that after he leaves work, there's not going to be some smouldering little irons there that are going to catch fire. This one here is a 20, which is an unacceptable risk, which falls into the high category. So basically, it's kind of like saying, right, you can't use the steps for that activity, we need to use something, we need to implement it straight away. Yeah, do we understand that?
Yeah, yes, I understand that totally. I'm just sort of looking at, on reflection now, I'll probably put that one in the same category. But
one of the things that you've got to remember about risk assessment is all down to the personal individual. There's no right or wrong answer, and this is where a lot of people get a bit confused sometimes, because my version of all this might be totally different to what you guys have said, and someone else might come in and they might have a totally different, because it's a reflection on what you've been exposed to in the past, what you've heard in the past, and also what you've seen in the past as well within your own work environment. So a risk assessment is very much personal to the person that's carrying it out. So everything that you do with the likelihood and the severity is always down to your own personal experiences within your own work environment. So that's why it can. And it was good to you that you guys were having that debate saying that, well, I don't think it's a 3 to 4, or is it, or whatever. There's no right or wrong answer. It's down to your own personal preference. Okay, fantastic. Just to recap, I think you did quite well. It was quite good to know that you guys already knew about risk assessment, which is always good to know about. I think there was good discussion going around, definitely with a fire, because you were contemplating whether it was a high, whether it was a low, and I think that's always good to have that discussion. Things about risk assessment is when you do carry out a risk assessment, it's always done not by yourself but with the people who are involved in that task or that activity, because they might have something to add to it as well. Are there any questions?
No, that's really good.